Hello, everybody. My name is George Williams, and I am the Next Search Catalog Coordinator at Northeast Kansas Library System.
And I'm Christopher Brannon with the Coeur d'Alene Public Library and the Cooperative Information Network. And this week, George is going to be talking to us about modifying hold start dates and something around there.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're dealing with libraries that close, this is a good modification. But before we get into that, we have a quick word about our sponsor.
This video is sponsored by koha-US, your place to look for all things Koha. Whether you're just starting out with Koha or you've been with Koha for a while, koha-US is a great place to find resources, learn new tips and techniques, or connect with other users and libraries. Koha-US provides excellent information, both original and curated from around the internet, including the terrific Every Other Day training videos. You will also find several special interest groups to connect with, as well as our general monthly meeting where we gather to talk about the latest Koha news. You should also check out the koha-US annual conference, held at various locations around the US. This is a great opportunity to meet with other users face-to-face, and build your Koha network, as well as new friendships. And of course, don't forget about the great presentations. Koha-US is also actively involved in the Koha community by contributing towards new developments. If you are interested in contributing towards Koha-US funded developments, join the Koha-US membership. Your annual membership builds the funds to sponsor new developments in the community, and as a member, you also help shape Koha-US with your membership votes, and receive a discount on the annual conference. You can also contribute towards developments through a direct donation, or by purchasing some great Koha-US merchandise through our Threadless account. Visit us at koha-us.org to find out more.
All right, George, take it away.
So this is the issue that specifically I had to deal with. Winchester, one of our libraries, had to close on February, March 8th, and they're closed, or February 8th, and they're closed to March 12th. What happened is over the Christmas break, they had a pipe froze, flooded the library, damaged a wall, ruined some carpet. And in February, a couple of weeks ago, they had finally gotten everything squared away with their insurance company, and their board agreed that they would be closed for a week while they took care of fixing this damage. So we had to come up with a way of dealing with how to handle closed libraries. Now, fortunately, I do this every year because we have a school district in our consortium, and all of those schools shut down for usually the last week of May, all of June, all of July, and about part of the way through August. They're completely shut down. And usually what I do is if somebody from one of those schools places a hold, I've got some stuff in place that I can have it so that they're, instead of, when they do a hold, instead of getting sent to their default library, their home library, it gets shipped to a different library that's near them. And so, I've been dealing with this for quite a while. One of the things I wanted to do with Winchester, though, is I wanted to make sure that if somebody put a new hold on something, that the hold date wouldn't start until the day before they're ready to open.
See, now you're just nice because, and I don't say this about you that often, but you're nice because when we shut down our schools, we have the hard due date that we set for everything prior to them closing, and then we turn off their pickup location and we make their items not holdable. So basically their stuff is unavailable until they open back up again. So you're nice by allowing people to place holds in the future.
Well, my issue isn't that everybody can place holds on this stuff in Winchester. That's not a problem. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is when somebody from Winchester places a hold to be picked up in Winchester. Our situation here is if that goes into the courier system, you might as well just be throwing your books down a well. Because if it gets into the courier system, and the library isn't open to receive that, there's a pretty good chance, there's about a 50-50 chance that that item is going to get into the courier system and it's going to end up in the wrong place. It's going to get lost. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that if somebody from Winchester places a request, that request isn't going to be shipped until the day before they're ready to reopen. So here's what I came up with. So right now, if I look in here and I find a patron and we do a search to hold, this is a book that I found in I'm on the koha-US demo site.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm all set up to show how to add this jQuery into the koha-US demo site. And other people are experiencing slowness throughout all of the BioWater customers. And we've had a bit of slowness today as I've been setting this up on the test system. But here I've got a book that I know is in the system, and I'm going to place a hold on it for this patron. And I've already set up, their home library is koha-US, but I've set up this library, Westwood High School, as my stand-in for Winchester in our system. So what I really wanted is if somebody had their home library at Westwood High School or if they change the drop down to Westwood High School, I want this hold starts on date to change automatically. And so what I came up with is some jQuery that does exactly that. And so let me plug that into this system preference here. So what I've got is, this was a complicated piece of jQuery, and that's why I wanted to write about it. And the issue was, we used to use a calendar, this little calendar that pops up in here. We used to be using a jQuery plugin called Date Picker, and Date Picker has kind of languished. There wasn't a lot of development. The code was getting out of date. And so the Koha community started using a new calendar plugin called Flat Picker.
Right, right.
And the issue that I had with this was that Flat Picker and Date Picker work differently. So what I've got is I wrote a query that starts off with, if we're on that hold page, it's going to look for that Select2. That's the other issue, is that these drop downs used to be simple HTML selects, and now they're Select2.
Yes,
which is
run into a few issues around that, but workable.
Yeah, it's just more complicated. So if that Select2 matches Westwood High School, then I've got a function that starts here. So whenever I'm on that page and that dropdown changes to Westwood High School, I'm going to change that reserve date to the date that I want in this dropdown here, in this date here.
And can you, just briefly, because I don't think we can cover Select2 enough. Can you show where you found that Select2 in the code? Because you reveal, if you inspect it, it's not stand out very much, but it is close by, but it's just not right what you select.
Yeah, the Select2, that actual piece of HTML is there, and then it gives you this role presentation, and when you open up the drop down, that's where all of these options are down here in a different part of the page. And so what it's doing is it's building this list dynamically, because Koha knows that there's some places that should be excluded from that drop-down list, and that varies depending on the circulation rules. Whether or not an item is available, it can be picked up at a specific library. So that's the reason. Yeah, and so
that was introduced so that pages would load faster because they didn't want the drop downs trying to populate when nobody was necessarily accessing them. So they only load them when you click on them.
Yeah, and well, and the other advantage of it is that Koha is able to look at the circulation rules and say which pickup locations are valid locations. And so if on this item, if on this title, there's a different set of pickup locations than on a different title, that's another advantage of Select2 is that it can dynamically build that list depending on the circulation rules. So there are some advantages to it. But
I have found that usually if you like when I right click on a one of these drop down lists and it's a Select2, usually the full complete list is like the selection is like right above that select.
I know what you mean. So the actual Select2 container is down here in this part of the page, but the actual this little piece of the actual holder for it, this is the container is here, but then the actual list is stored in a different part of the page.
Like I think it's that select that's closed, like right above the span above you there. So if you go up, it says
This one.
Yeah, right there. So that's
Yeah.
probably the complete list there if you're looking for that.
Yep. So they're in different places, but what I wanted is what I've got is what I wanted is something that when I change this to Westwood High School, I want this date here to update to the date that I want. And that's what this first part here does is, if it's saying, if we're on this page and we detect a change in this dropdown, then it's going to plug in this value of 31223. It's going to change the attribute on that selector to read only. And the hard part was the flat picker. What I wanted to do is I wanted to set a minimum date in the flat picker of the date that the library is reopening. So I didn't want people to be able to come in here and let me reload this page now that I've added the jQuery. So we start off with the patron's home library. And when I choose the Westwood High School branch, it automatically updates that date. But it makes it so that I can't backdate it from before that date.
And they clear it.
Yes, and I also, and that's why that read only isn't working correctly. It was working before I went to lunch. Maybe I needed to put it in a read. Oh, I know what I did. I edited it before lunch, and I think I placed I think I messed up the clear button. Oh, somewhere or another I messed this up. Well, darn.
These
All
things
right.
happen. Yeah, I was noticing the double X there too. So it's like,
Yeah, the double X is something that doesn't happen in the version of in one version of Koha, but it does happen in the other. It happens in. It's not happening on my test system, but it is happening in the koha-US demo site. But it's not happening in my test system, and I don't know why. But I am still getting that clear button, but I wasn't earlier. So that makes me wonder what I did wrong when I copied this. So I'm going to have to pop over to my production system and see if I can find that. There we go. So I made it read only so that only the flat picker can interfere with that.
Okay.
And I made it a required field so that if you try and clear it, it won't let you. So that was the first thing I did. And then what I found rather quickly, though, is that in order for this to work properly, the other issue is what if the patron, and that one is Brenda Frosty. There was another issue where if the patron's home library is already the branch that you want to drop that you don't want them to have requests sent.
Mm-hmm.
So that took an additional piece of code. Let's get back to that biblio that I know is a good one. Oh, it's so slow today. There we go, place hold. And I thought I just changed her home library, didn't I? Maybe
Yeah,
I
thought you
didn't.
did. You have the other piece of code installed.
Oh, I know what it is. It's because I'm I want to switch libraries. That's my problem. So what if you're already at Westwood High School and you go to place this hold? Since that first piece of jQuery requires a change in the dropdown before it triggers, it doesn't work if the default pickup location is Westwood High School. See, if you're already at Westwood High School, if you switch to a different location and then switch back to Westwood High School, then it updates. But if you start off at Westwood High School, it doesn't, because it doesn't work because that requires a change.
Right, you haven't triggered anything.
And so what I wanted to do was add in this piece, which is saying, you know, if we have that request, and if the request, you know, we're using a selector to say if that selected value equals Westwood, which is the code, then set the reserve date by default to the 12th of March. So now if I try that again, if we redo that, now if it starts off at Westwood High School, it by default has that date there. So that was my way of accomplishing making sure that no items are going to be shipped to Winchester. No new requests are going to be shipped to Winchester while they're closed. And my other step is I have a report, and I went in there and I suspended any holds until March 12th for people that already had requests on things. So we're trying to make sure as little stuff as possible gets shipped to Winchester while they're closed.
So do you have some code similar to this for the OPAC side as well?
The OPAC side, no, because in the OPAC, we don't have the patron, we don't have the hold starts on date set as something that the patrons see in the OPAC. So once a day I go in and I run a report just to make sure. Winchester I'm fortunate in the fact that Winchester is not a very busy library. It's not in one of our bigger towns. It's only a town of about 300 people. And so there aren't a lot of people that are requesting things to be sent to Winchester in the first place.
So if you don't have that for the OPAC side, then you're going to have, if you do something like this, you're going to have to keep an eye on hold requests.
Yes.
And modify those. But if you do have the ability on the OPAC side, then you probably want to modify your code to work on that side as well.
Yeah, and I am planning on working that jQuery up for the summer when our schools close, because this will be a huge time saver for us once the schools close.
Now, the question is, my question is, if you don't have that setting on the OPAC side, is it truly not there, or is it just a hidden field?
It's hidden, and I've actually, I wanted to show
So
some.
you could force it, even though they don't have the option, they won't know.
Right.
But so do you have any kind of notice to staff or to well, I think, well, you have the notice to the staff about the library closed itself, but do you have any notice to the staff or patrons that holds to going to that library will be delayed?
I left that to the director of that library to inform patrons.
Okay.
What we do have in the what I wanted to talk about the OPAC though, I've got the same patron logged in, and when you go to place a hold, this is what we see in our system. I have this hide options by default opens automatically in our system. So patrons do see the hold not needed after date. And so the other thing that I wanted to talk about today is that there are system preferences related to the default hold expiration date.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, if I go in here and I place a hold for this item, for this title, for this patron, once I go back to that borrower's account and look at their holds, you can see there's no expiration date there.
Right.
And so I want to cancel that. And let me go back here. There is a system preference that's new in Koha. It was new, I think, in 2021-11 or 2205. I don't remember.
I think it's 2205.
It's called default hold expiration date, default hold expiration date period, and default hold expiration date unit of time. So you can set this so that it'll set an expiration date, 365, 365 days, or, 1 year, or you could do 18 months. It gives you a bunch of different options.
Right.
And so let's put that there. And then we'll go back to this borrower, this record in the catalog, and place the hold. One of the things, though, you'll see that the date looks blank.
Well, that's the not needed after. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, which is the hold expiration date. And so even though I've set those 3 settings, you don't see a date there. And when we confirm the hold, we go back to the borrower and reload. Now we'll see 2 holds for this borrower. It puts the date there. It's just it doesn't show it to the borrower.
So
when you're placing the hold
tab there, it's not going to show it.
It'll show it now that they have the hold on. It'll show it here. But when you're placing the hold, you don't see that there was that date set when you were placing the hold.
That's a little weird.
I thought so too, and I've always thought so, and so that's why I have this second piece of jQuery that I use in our system that I've been using for a long time. We have for the last 4 years had an expiration date, because I've been using this code here, which is just code that says, it's getting if the URL is OPAC reserve PL, it's going to build a date that's 1 year from today.
Okay.
And so that's what I have our system geared for, is 12 months in the future. And so this way, if we go ahead and if we cancel that hold, so let's look up the title again. Now it's sticking a date in there.
Nice.
That's a year from today.
So,
And-
okay, I want to go off on a tangent here for just a minute.
Okay.
Because you brought this expiration date thing up, and we just had this conversation in our consortium, because this was the expiration date was a new feature in this last release, the 2205 that we have. What is the justification for expiring holds at a certain point rather than letting them have the request out there indefinitely? I mean, if it's not hurting anybody, why not let them keep the hold? What was the thought process of saying we don't want them to have a hold request out there that long?
We have holds in our system that date back to 2008 that have never been filled.
Okay.
And the problem we encounter with that, for one thing, it used to be that if an item, and sometimes I still encounter this for whatever reason, if you have an item that needs to be deleted and there's a hold on that bibliographic record and it's the last item, it can sometimes be difficult to delete the item. And we have some automatic processes that delete items that are lost and missing and discarded, withdrawn, that have lost statuses, with discarded statuses, that we have those set to automatically delete. And in some cases, if the item has a hold on it, it can make it hard for those processes to automatically delete the items. The other issue for us is we have some process in place to delete patrons that haven't used their accounts in more than 3 years. And it is absolutely true that you can't delete a patron if they have holds on things.
Huh.
And so that's our justification, is I want things to expire, you know, and I do have patrons. We have one patron at one of our libraries that regularly has over 300 holds.
Wow.
And it's every time, I think they listen to NPR every morning, and everybody that mentions a book on NPR, and I think they listen to it from 8 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon. Every book that gets mentioned on NPR, they go out there and they place a hold on it. And then they immediately suspend all of those holds. And so we have a lot of patrons that place a lot of holds. We have a couple of patrons like that. They have a lot of holds. And if they don't get filled after a certain amount of time, they usually take care of them. But my guess is that a lot of people, and this person, they see that expiration date that's in there and they just go ahead and they move it up like 10 years into the future.
Yeah.
But I like it when things, Koha has done a lot, but it used to be called orphaned holds. And that was a problem with things in the past, is when holds would, like the patron would, there were some methods where people could be deleted and the hold wouldn't. And there were some situations where the item would be deleted, but the hold wouldn't. And those holds, kind of gum things up.
So that would be more ideal to me, is, if I'm cleaning out the patron database and we've had somebody expired for a couple of years and I want to delete them, it should be able to say, okay, this person's been expired for 2 years, so they haven't been active. They've got these holds. Let's cancel these holds and then delete them. It would be nice if there was that option. Yeah.
But that does gum up the works. Sometimes if a hold has been out there for a long time, it's never been filled and it's never going to be filled, it can cause problems deleting items, deleting biblios, and definitely deleting patrons. It is an absolute blocker for deleting patrons. There isn't an automated script in Koha for deleting patrons. And I've talked to a couple of people about it and they think it's a really bad idea. But we have, maybe that's another video sometime. We have a process for how to delete patrons. I do it usually, our policy manual says that we do it twice a year. I actually do it once a month, because that way, if I do it, if we get to February and I've done it January and February, I'm done. I could conceivably slack off for the whole rest of the year and still have met the requirements of that policy.
Yeah, we do it once a month too. It's like, I would have had the system just do it daily, because a rule is a rule. If they've been expired for the 2 years and they're deleted daily, you're deleting less on a daily basis than you are in a month, or that you are a year or semi-annually. So it's like, the more you can do the maintenance, the less work it's going to be at that moment.
Yeah, I got it down to like a half an hour of work once a month to delete a bunch of people. So that should be another video. We have some automated scripts that we use to delete items regularly, and then we have this manual process for deleting patrons monthly. So those would be good workflow videos for us to do sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but I wanted to throw this out there because it was similar to what I was doing with the expiration dates, and maybe I can update the OPAC side of things once I get that squared away, because that's something that I want to add for the summer, because it just simplifies the process.
Right.
If the patron places a hold at their home library and their home library is closed, if it just pushes that date, that hold start date up until the future, like the day before the library reopens, that's just a huge amount of it's a lot less work for me personally, and it's a lot less likely that things will get lost in our courier system.
Right.
So
trying to remember, did we do a video about closures? I can't remember if we did or not.
I don't think we ever have, but
I think we should do something like that, because we could talk about this again. We could revisit this, but we could talk about the different ways that you can close a library and the things that you should consider.
Yeah. What would really be awesome is if there was just a button on the library record. If it was a drop down with like one of those drop downs with check boxes where you could say this library is currently not a pickup. It's not a pickup location. They don't fill requests. They don't accept delivery of anything. If there was just a drop down there that you could check off the boxes of what this library isn't doing for a period, because we have 5 libraries that close every summer for 2.5 to 3 months.
Yeah. And
then we have these emergency situations where this library is going to be closed because a pipe broke. And we had another one, we have 50 libraries. It's not unusual for a library to say, we're going to close for, 2 weeks to put in new carpeting.
Remodeling. Yep.
Remodeling stuff happens from time to time. New carpeting, new shelves. We've had, we don't have water, because of a problem with the town well. Nobody in town has water for a week, so we're not opening.
It's a funny subject in the community too, because I've had a few bugs open on it, and it's like it hasn't been a priority for anyone in the community to set up a mechanism to easily close libraries. I mean, there are steps that you can do, and yeah. I've got my steps down pretty good, but it is still a process. I mean, particularly, if you're going to close a building and you want to, if you want all the items back by a certain date, we have to modify all of the rules so that they have hard due dates at a certain point. And it would be nice to be able to say, hey, at such and such a date, we're going to be closed. We want hard due dates at this point, and it would modify that, and you would be able to set those things in advance and not have to race against the clock when that time rolls around, or remember to turn these things on and off. It would be great if there were some sort of mechanism you could schedule.
When I left Valnet in the summer of 2016, Valnet is about half school libraries, and so half of the libraries were closed, and I had set that all up. And I left instructions for how to turn them back on, but nobody could find those instructions when it was time for those libraries to come back on. And so I'll never forget being at the Koha conference in Monterey, and Todd from Bywater saying, you know, was answering a call from somebody at Valnet saying, we can't figure out how to turn the schools back on. And Todd saying, well, George is right here. Let me, and he just handed me his cell phone and let me do his tech support.
Wow. Okay.
So, and I was able to walk that person through where to find the document that explained how to deactivate it. So.
All right. Well, good stuff. Thank you for showing us how to modify those hold dates, especially with that flat picker. That is good information.
Yeah.
I'm sure people will find that handy, and we have some good ideas for some future videos here. So,
all right. We'll see all you later.
all right. Take care.